Chapter 1: Ordinary People. I have arrived safe and sound in India. My voyage home took 18 weeks and 3 days, and not a moment too soon. I don't know if I will ever get used to that tin can of a British steamship. It is indeed an unnatural environment, one I don't care much for. Yes, below deck there was a lounge where tea was available on demand, but I much preferred to be on deck watching the men working and the mesmerizing waves breaking against the bow in a steady rhythm. The Suez Canal was the highlight of my ocean adventure. So many steamships heading to so many places in the world. This absolutely fascinates me. The captain told me that many of these ships were destined for exotic places like Zanzibar, Australia, New Zealand, Java, Japan. My mind cannot fathom the sound of such wonderful places. Father told me that the voyage from England to India via the Cape of Good Hope on the old sail ships used to take at least 6 months before the coming of steamship technology. And before they opened the Suez Canal, the early steamers could only get to the port of Alexandria from England. From there, passengers and mail were transited by barge to paddle steamer down the Nile to Cairo. One then had to manage a harrowing horse-drawn carriage 123 kilometers across the desert to the port of Suez, where one could resume one's travels on a steamship from Suez to Madras via Mumbai. Thank goodness for modern technology. If it was a sunny day, I could stay above deck for hours. This only occurred once we had crossed the Atlantic Ocean and were into the warmer climate of the Mediterranean Sea. I was glad to be rid of my wool trousers and waist-length battle dress jacket, which were very necessary to ward off the biting cold wind off the coast of England. On the ship there was much hustle and bustle, and it was always noisy. Grinding gears, screaming machinery, and people, always shouting people. Needless to say, I spent most nights and dreary days in the library below deck reading and making notes. What was I going to do once I arrived back in India? I remember that distinct moment when Lady Frances pronounced us ladies of the Parlour Empire. We were sitting in the tea room at our farewell tea session, and I was already anxious with emotion, knowing I would be leaving the academy and all its familiarity and saying goodbye to my friends. With those words, I felt like she had walked me up to a steep cliff and pushed me over the edge, and I was falling. I later pointed to her that the society did not extend as far out as India, and she looked at me with her thin nose and her pursed lips and said, "Well, my dear, there is much for you to do upon your arrival, isn't there?" The prospect filled me with dread. Am I to erect a ladies' sorority here, in India? Is this why my father sent me to the academy? To come back and set up an extension of the Parlour Empire and to recruit members in British India? And who would I recruit? My father's servants? Ridiculous. I must admit that as we neared port, the unmistakable presence of India hit me like a wall. The dark waters with floating debris, the oppressive heat, the smell. Alighting off the steamship, I was assaulted with the usual chaos of port life. Workmen in nothing but loincloths unloading luggage, porters loading bags onto rickshaws, horse-drawn carts, donkeys and bicycles, cages of panicked livestock falling and clattering, people yelling, vendors calling, bells, whistles, and children. The children are everywhere. Poor, homeless, hungry children. I had grown up here with all this happening around me, but being away for all these years and suddenly being thrust into the thick of it made me hold on to my hat and want to catch my breath. I used to think myself strong and able to take on anything in my stride. Never show weakness, never show emotion, but inside I felt greatly unsettled by it all. It was wonderful seeing my parents again. Mother met me at the docks in a rickshaw with a large hug and a mango. She knew I had been craving a mango for 4 years. Father was detained at work for most of the day, but I heard his booming voice calling me the moment he entered the front doors. "Where is Flora? Where is my Flora Rose?" I melted into his hug. How I'd missed my father. While away, I had steeled myself and closed off my heart, telling myself that I can survive alone, can survive without love and comfort of my family and hope, yet the moment I glimpsed them, I was reduced to a little girl once more. This is the power of family. The same occurred when I walked into my old bedroom. The familiarity and the memories came flooding, and my heart swelled and choked in my throat. I wanted to weep for what I do not know. For the old days, for my childhood, for the illusion of safety in days gone by. I am in transition and I know it. It is very much a case of knowing that I am not the same Flora Rose who walked out of these doors almost 5 years ago. It is also the uncertainty of how I will fit back into a household that continued on without me. It is also a case of how I will adjust to living in a society full of do's and don'ts, for as you are well aware, we are considered a genteel class, and what we do is scrutinized and gossiped about, and everything one says and does eventually comes back to be answered for. Oh, to be a child again. Better yet, to be a stranger in a place where no one knows or cares who you are or what you do. Mother and father have such plans for me. Mother wants me to assist her at the charity house, an aid hospice she runs for the destitute and homeless on the streets of Madras. Mother says it is our duty to help the poorest of the poor. Father wants to hold a gala at the British Officers Club to introduce me as a lady of the parlor empire. He is very proud. Tonight at dinner he was in high spirits and said he couldn't wait to introduce me to his newly appointed sergeant who had just been transferred to Madras from the outpost. As Father's story continued, his voice seemed to fade, the room swirled, and I felt like I was floating between worlds. To my utter embarrassment, I found myself falling off my chair and onto the cashmere carpet in our dining room. The servants carried me off to my room with my parents following closely. Father said it was just the heat and that I had to reacclimatize. Mother said it was a dizzy spell brought on from a long trip in that tin can and that I had to find my feet again on firm ground. Thus was my first evening in India. I thought that I had proved myself adult enough by traveling half a world away from my family, living among strangers, and excelling at bareback riding, fencing, and bow and arrow. My body is a traitor to my mind. I do not enjoy its weakness. I have so much to do here in India, and it better comply because I plan on forging a path of my own and charting my own adventure, despite my parents' plans. One must have one's own plan, for I deeply believe that ordinary people can do extraordinary things, and one must have faith that we are here for a reason. What that reason is will soon become apparent. It is only a matter of time. Love, Flora Rose, August 1885, Madras, India.